as it's been our tradition, we'll get it uploaded to the SEDA COG website afterwards. So anyone from the public can follow along and see what was discussed here today and learn more through that virtual means to download that. So that goes on our YouTube channel, and the link is also on our website. Just a quick reminder for the survey that we send out for the meetings, if you can go ahead and hit that. It's pretty brief. We just ask for if you're attending, you're not attending, and then the means if you're doing in person or virtual. So that just helps us plan for the packets that we have here in the room and make sure we have a quorum and all that kind of thing. So if you're able to hit that survey monkey when it goes out, we'd appreciate that in the future. Also, a couple announcements before we do introductions. Some bittersweet stuff with the announcements on some goings. I know people were congratulating Katie Silva here. Her retirement's coming up at the end of October. We're glad that she's brought Steve Gibson along as well, the new county planning director that'll be succeeding her. So we'll allow them to share some more in a moment on that. But it's been terrific to work with Katie over many years, past at Northumberland County and then at Clinton County. And just your track record speaks for itself and all that you've accomplished. And we appreciate everything you've done to our body here at the MPO and all the successes you've had with all the Bald Eagle Valley Trail work and all across Clinton County and how you've shaped the region. So we appreciate that. Just have a little minor memento here, a little certificate of appreciation to give to you on behalf of the MPO. Not up to snuff of the recent awards you've been getting, and we're glad to see what's been bestowed upon you from various areas in Clinton County, and then even getting the Katie's Crossing for the new bridge over the Susquehanna named in your behalf has been excellent. So huge impact you've had in the area. So we're glad to have Steve join us, and we'll work with Clinton County on getting him designated as the successor to be the voting member for Clinton County. So two others to announce here at the forefront. Unfortunately, Catherine Wild has announced her resignation, and she'll be leaving us next Friday for another position, but we appreciate all she's done the past 4 years. GIS-wise, mapping capabilities that she's brought to the MPO has been huge, and all the support for the Active Transportation Committee, our local bridge prioritization process, and so forth. So we'll let her share a little more if she wants on that as we do introductions. And another one, a little bit further out at least, is Kay Ike will be retiring the end of December. So that's a huge loss. She's brought so much to this group, this forum, how she's tracked everything, all the work and the minutes, and just what she's brought personally to all of us. So we thank her for all her service over about the past 20 years, and all she's done for the Rail Authority and the GIS program, the gas co-op over time. So change is a constant, and we all appreciate the service of all these individuals and all you bring to the table. And we just want to congratulate Catherine and Kay and Katie for all that they've done and all they provide to us.
Yeah, we love the K.
Keeping it going. But fortunately, we have Kristen joined us recently, so another K. And all that she brings to the equation here with her skill set and expertise. So I will, with those announcements, turn it over for introductions for the folks here in the room. So Kristen, thank you.
Kristen McLaughlin with SEDA COG, the recently transferred transportation planner from community development. So I'm here officially full-time in transportation now.
I'm Catherine Wild. I am currently with SEDA COG. I'm going to be transitioning to working with Michael Baker. So hopefully we'll be working with some of you guys down the line on some projects and things like that, and won't be goodbye forever. So glad to be here and hope to see you again soon.
Congrats.
Thank you.
I'm Kay Ike. I think Steve already introduced the departments I work for. It's a bittersweet time for me. I've been here 21 years, and I have so enjoyed working with the MPO members. And I'm going to miss you all, but I think it's just time for me to go. But I am going to be seeking part-time work somewhere. So if anybody knows of anything, please keep me in mind. But thank you for everything that you've done for the MPO.
I'm Katie DeSilva, Clinton County Planner, outgoing. And Steve said what my roles have been: gas co-op, MPO, And Kim Wheeler's new planning directors group.
Greg Moulter, Montour County Planning Director. I have nothing big to add. I've been here and I'm gonna be here. See you next time.
I'm Jenny Figglescar. I work for DeBerry Engineers. But congratulations to Kay and Katie. You're gonna love it.
Richard Kaufman with Snyder County Planning. I guess if your last name is K, you don't get to retire or anything like that. But Kirsten, welcome aboard. Catherine, Kay, thank you very much for everything that you've done while I've been here. Greatly enjoyed getting to work with you. Katie, same with you. It's been awesome getting to work with you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Glad you're getting the opportunity to retire.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm Steve Gibson. I'm the incoming Clinton County Director of Planning. I haven't accomplished anything. It's my first week, so you know, I'm a blank page, and I look forward to working with you.
A blank page with a lot of experience under his belt.
Yeah, we're grateful for that. And as I told Steve, great to have multidisciplinary approach, with engineering, combined with a lot of the planning representation that we have already on the group, and for PennDOT as well. So we're appreciative of that, and we're very glad to welcome you to our group and what you bring to the table.
Thank you.
Mark's just arriving now. We were just doing a round of announcements and introductions before we get started. So if you don't mind, we'll just have you introduce yourself to the group and all those joining us online.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I'm Mark Lucy, the Mifflin County Planning Director.
Great, thanks, Mark. Yeah, you didn't really miss anything, just those quick announcements. So that was all. And then, not to belabor, go through the online, but if there's anybody joining us virtually, if you wanted to make any announcements, or if you're new, this is your first attendance of MPO meeting, feel free to speak up in the next 5 to 10 seconds. Okay, hearing none. Well, if there's anybody new that needs to be getting our emails on our agendas and our packets, feel free to let us know. We're always kind of broadening our tent and sharing information. So we're pleased to do that and provide a lot easy access to the information coming out of the MPO. So feel free to get us those updates at any time. Next order of business we have is the approval of the August 12th meeting minutes. Those are in your packet starting on page 3. So we would look to see if there's any discussion and then entertain a motion to approve.
Steve, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Great, thank you, Mark, for the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, I had Greg's hand first, sorry, just beat you there. Katie will give a second to Greg Mueller, Montour County. Thank you, Greg. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none, the motion properly moved and seconded and passed. We'll move on our agenda to item D. This is our normal administrative modifications and amendments to the TIP that are occurring since the last meeting that we had on August 12th. So the activity begins on page 9. And so these are all actions that had occurred between August 13th and September 27th when the report was extracted. So we'll share a little bit after the PennDOT updates, something we're trying to do now. Catherine has taken on with some web mapping to show these project changes for you on a web map that we can share in future MPO packets when we send those out. So getting me more oriented to the project location and the details of what's being done rather than just looking at narrative sections. So we'll look to kind of bring that up and share the screen, take any input you have for how we should revise or enhance that in the future. But I think that'd be a nice little addition to get folks oriented to what's going on with these changes. As you know, our 2023 TIP was adopted last year, went through the process, was adopted by the State Transportation Commission and approved by the Federal Highway Administration. So kind of when we get to this stage of the game, there's a lot of rapid changes because we're entering a new TIP, things that are being cash flowed and such. So you'll see a lot of those changes on there within the report in the packet, but we'll turn it over as we customarily do to Mark Schultz. We usually begin with District 2 for our changes and then taking a vote to approve those. So Mark, if you're able to unmute and give us a description of things you want to highlight for the changes, we'd appreciate that.
Yes, I am. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. First of all, I want to start off with congratulations to Katie and Catherine and Kay, and let it be known that have continued and have always had professional responses and I guess respect for the efforts that you've put into both of your areas through the county and through the planning partner. So I appreciate all that you've done and all that you've set up for us to be able to continue with. So thank you very much. Jumping right into the administrative actions. Many of these administrative actions that you see on page 9 and forward are set up from the completion of the 2021 TIP. We recognize that we had some additional funds or funds that were available. We wanted to be able to utilize those funds rather than lose them at the expiration of the 2021 TIP. So we were able to make some adjustments and move some monies into a project on page 9 there for East Charles Street, increase the money that was available there for the construction phase. That project has been awarded and will be going out to construction next year. Moving down to the branch of Long Hollow 2, similar situation in which we were adjusting for a future bid, a bid that we just received yesterday, and it was a very good bid as well. We adjusted some reserve line item monies for the construction phase of that Mifflin County Bridge on SR 2020 on 22. Moving down to page 10, Valley Street betterment, also a construction phase adjustment, added some funds into that. That was a project that was bid in September, and we had a very good successful bid for 1005 Valley Street. That project will be going, has been awarded, and it will be going under construction the spring of next year as well. We moved down into the bottom of page 10, and we had some adjustments within there for funds that were available through the right-of-way and utility phases that could not be completed in 2021. We will be looking to adjust for those on the 23 TIP. You see the branch along Hollow Run, and you also see the SR 35, Stop 35, the sheets, some adjustments for utility and right-of-way phases there as well. Those funds were made available and able to be brought back to the reserve line item. We will be making adjustments for the Stop 35 utility and right-of-way needs moving into the 2023 TIP as well. That 2023 TIP portion and the adjustments that you'll see as we move into those will take account probably beginning next week, and you'll see those types of actions in the following meeting. Moving down to 150 P37 2022 bridge preservation on page 11. Similar situation, adjustment for construction. And then we also see a follow-up for 1001 in Clinton County, as well as Valley Street, where funds were adjusted and brought back to the reserve line item in that area as well. And I guess as we move down towards the bottom, we see that it's mostly balancing coming into our box culvert program, where we were adjusting for state funds, state bridge and state highway funds that were being utilized for these bridges. Those funds were distributed back out to construction and PE phases, utility and right of way. And then an adjustment on the bottom of page 12 for the Port Royal Bridge 75A03 and the PE phase. We had a significant amount of consultation with the railroad, and there was an adjustment needed to the railroad consultant agreement, the railroad preliminary engineering agreement, to allow for invoicing of those costs in that area as well. So the completion of that is just a balancing throughout a number of the other projects, and we're able to confidently state that both through the federal funds and the state funds that were available in 2021 and 2022, that we did come up with a very good and very complete balance of those funds that were available and the distribution of those funds out to the projects that were needed within the program. So at this time, if anyone had any questions or any comments that they would like to bring to my attention, we can do that.
Great, thank you, Mark, for that rundown. And if there are no questions or commentary, we look for a motion to approve the District 2 TIP administrative modifications.
So moved.
Thank you, Katie, for the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mark Galusi. Thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none, the motion has been passed. Next will be our highlight from Jonathan Rank at PennDOT District 3 to take us through the District 3 modifications that begin on page 14. John, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Sounds good.
Very good. First off, I'll start off and echo Mark's comments earlier with Katie, Kay, and Catherine moving on. Everybody here from District 3 says congratulations, and we wish you nothing but the best on your future endeavors. Moving into our actions, and one amendment, just an overview from the last August meeting. We had an increase, and that's again in the beginning here on Route 80. Also, we had a few other increases for Route 80 as well here in the beginning of these actions. There was a few other cost increases as well as we had, and to kind of keep this short, again, echoing Mark's statements, a lot of the other adjustments you see are just us closing out the 2021 TIP and getting ready to move into the 2023 TIP. As far as how our funding went, we did well. However, we were not able to obligate funding for the 80 group project that at last meeting I came to you for an amendment for. I'm working through what that means right now. However, it is going to be a rather significant hit to the 2023 TIP. And what I can say about it so far is that we do have line items that are taking care of roughly 100% of this, so we don't anticipate any hit to the program. However, we basically are going to take any type of reserve we have and virtually drain it. I'll take any questions at this time.
Is that mostly due to just the supply chain and the inflation, or the other factors there, John?
Mainly it is deliverability. The 80 group is a rather large project and is full federal oversight. We did submit the request for obligation, what we call the 4232 in time. However, the review process for the PS&E package was not approved in time to allow for the 4232 to be approved. So that's unfortunately the reason we were not able to obligate the funding and utilize a decent portion of our 2022 and 2021 federal fiscal years on the 21 TIP.
Thank you, John, for the update. Are there questions from the members on any of the actions in District 3?
John, do we lose that funding? Does it go back and no longer available to us in any format? Or
Well,
does
it's tough to explain it, to a degree. We lost what we call, I guess you could say, the program being part of the funding. Overall, what we would say the authority wise, we didn't lose much of that or any of that, because basically that is like considered statewide. So what we maybe didn't use, another district or maybe even District 2 through the SEDA COG picked up. For us, again, what really matters is basically we're taking a program hit on the 2023 TIP. However, like I said, we kept a significant amount of line item anticipating inflation. And besides the fact that I also had a decent amount of money programmed within the projects themselves for inflation that I don't think I'll need to utilize all. Between those two funding sources, I'm not foreseeing a overall hit to our project program. So we're not going to lose anything, but basically we're not going to have much room if there's projects that come in higher than what we expect.
Thank you.
And while there may have been a hit to this one, if you're looking closely at the sheets where you saw about the redistributions because District 2 and 3 were advancing so many projects and there were openings across the state from other districts that weren't, we did have other funds come in on other projects. It's just this one was, impacted, as John was saying, by the deadline of getting those plans, specifications, estimates approved in time. But there were other funds that came in from other areas because of how advanced other projects were here on our regional tip. So could be a mixed bag sometimes, but that's what happened to the 80 projects. So thanks for running that down, John.
And Steve, just to add, at the November meeting, I will have this basically to a point where I'll be able to discuss this, and I probably will have an amendment in adding the one project 8160 back on to fully fund it.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the District 3 modifications? So moved by Greg Muller, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Lincoln, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Okay, thank you. The motion has passed. Under this section, we have our typical kind of reporting on projects that were previously approved by the MPO, but required further action or approvals by other parties. So that's in there on page 23, and that's the ARC local access road projects that are still moving along and have not been put out to bid yet. So that's there. And I did reference a little bit earlier the web map concept of what we were looking to do. So Catherine's going to share a screen of the work in progress here, the draft, to run that by you, take any input or comments you may have, and then show an example from the Harrisburg MPO. We're kind of modeling this off of what our sister planning partners has done, and kind of put that into practice. So Catherine's bringing that up here now, and we'll look to share something like this for future MPO meetings to give you more of a visual representation.
All right. So I just have sort of a draft version right now of what we're looking at. I'll show you the Harrisburg version first. So they just have a mapping app, and you can look over here at the amendments and administrative actions that they would discuss at their MPO meetings as well. They have a little option where you can specifically highlight one project at a time. And you can also click on the projects, if I can get one without causing an uproar here with the computer. But then they have a little pop-up, tells you what the action was, when it's estimated to let, the title and the MPMS number. So that's the goal of what we're trying to achieve. I got the projects on here. I need to format some of the pop-ups and things like that, and there's some further revisions on here too. But this will probably be shared out with everyone. You can go through and look, and this is reflective of what is included in the packet that we just went over. All of those are included in here, all the projects that we were discussing. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that?
I think it's awesome because all of these little T532s and SR 1001s are so meaningless. And if you really want to know what's going on in this packet, that's great.
Yeah, we thought this might be more beneficial than just sending you all out to one map or other things, since it's specific just to the changes that are occurring at
Right.
the specific MPO meeting.
Yeah.
Any other comments? All right.
Great, thanks for working on that, Catherine, and demonstrating that here today. So we'll have to continue to refine that, but make that available for all future MPO meetings. So any other feedback as you receive it, feel free to let us know, and we'll try and tweak and modify it so it's even more helpful. Next on our agenda is our normal item E, the CSVT project, and if there are any updates also on the State Route 54 safety project in Montour County. And that's always covered by Mr. John Rank and updates he has, and from other parties at the district that are working on these projects. So John, we'll turn it over to you, please.
All right, thanks again, Steve. I'm just going to jump right into it, starting with CSVT northern section. By today, the paving should be complete, as I'm told. Other work may need to be completed after today includes shoulder backup and cable and work on the cable median barrier. And then that should be it for the northern section. Moving on to the southern section, starting with the earthwork contract. Utilities are being relocated throughout the area. Trees are being cut at key locations. Areas where trees are cut are being cleared and grubbed. Haul roads and access roads are being constructed. Drainage and erosion and sedimentary controls are being constructed throughout the project. And on Route 204 and Mill Road intersection is being upgraded. Route 15 southbound turn lane at Granger's Road is being constructed. And construction of a large drainage feature such as box culverts and large diameter pipes will begin soon. Moving on to the second contract for structures and noise wall. In late August, we held meetings with 5 neighborhoods where noise walls are warranted, feasible, and reasonable based on our final design noise analysis. Only 30% of the property owners and residents invited attended. To date, only about 50% of the ballots have been returned asking if a wall was desired, and if so, what texture color they would want on their side of the wall. We sent out a follow-up certified letters to those who didn't return their original ballots, and depending on the outcome of this follow-up, we will determine if another outreach is needed. And we are continuing to develop the plans for the second contract for the structures and walls, and we still look to have construction to start in the 2024 construction year. All right, and that is all I have for the southern section for CSVT and the northern section. I'll take any questions anybody might have.
How long is the construction period gonna be?
For the southern section, we're estimating to have it open to traffic in 2027. All right, before I start the 54 section 90, I would like Greg Mulder to take a few relaxing breaths here as I give this update. This project with this new road.
Hold on, John.
Yeah.
You're getting me to
All right.
hyperventilate here.
All right, no, it's not too bad, Greg. So it's not, little woo-saw and we'll be okay.
Ready.
This project with the new roadway construction is displaced. Left turn lane is taking longer than we anticipate to develop and finalize its right-of-way plan. We now anticipate having the final right-of-way plans approved by mid-December. Due to this, we will have to move, well, we have moved the project's let date from a summer let to a fall winter let in 2023. After the final right-of-way plans are approved, we will look to meet with the Community Action Committee, the CAC, in late this year or early next year to give an update on the project. So it's not too bad, Greg. We got to move it basically a season. It's not going to affect us funding wise, and really it's not affecting us construction wise because we would have not been able to do too much with a mid-summer let in 2023.
Moving by a couple of months is not gonna be an issue. If you'd come back and said we're moving out to 2027, I would have a coronary.
No, so would I. So I probably would have left before this. I don't think I would have survived it. So yeah, we're still on track. It's when you're building a new road where there hasn't been a road, and this displaced left turn lane, just to add on, it's a bit of a rough go just trying to get this thing through all the checks and reviews that it needs.
Understand.
And that is my update. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, John. If there aren't any questions about that, we thank you for the thorough update and keeping all those balls rolling on these major projects. So we're next transitioning to item F. We normally call this our Unified Planning Work Program update. It's kind of our catch-all for sundry things that are being worked on by the staff here, and things that we're touching or impacting. So I will just highlight a few items from within your packet. The report begins on page 25, the staff activity report. The PennDOT Connect studies, we'll be hearing momentarily from Brian Funkhauser about the US Route 522 corridor study. That presentation is in your packet, and the final report's on our website now. So we'll make sure to get that link in this section. We do have the Hogan Boulevard one there, and we shared that after the last meeting. And Katie confirmed that the consultant to come up and give a presentation locally on that as well. So we're glad for that momentum and what's occurring there to help implement those recommendations. On the 2022-2024 work program side of things there, kind of halfway down the page, with bipartisan infrastructure law, along with the construction dollars, you've all seen there were some additional planning dollars as well. So the MPO will be receiving those. We'll have to amend our work program to reflect that, with the increase there with the extra federal funds. And then also there's this new safe and accessible transportation options program. It's not providing a significant sum, but you'll see it's about $15,000 will be available. And there's a call scheduled for next week by PennDOT to share more details on that, how it will play out and what it can go toward. So we'll report more, but kind of our initial thought was to work on some of the priorities from the Active Transportation Committee and advance some of those ideas and concepts. So we'll learn more and we'll share more as it comes together. But at this stage, we don't have too much to report on that new program and funding. On the 2023 TIP update, I did mention that Federal Highway Administration has approved that, and Federal Transit Administration. Planning finding just came out, I think, last week, so we didn't have time to get that in your pack here today, but we can share that for the November meeting. The recommendations and commendations that come from Federal Highway Administration on our process for the TIP updates and materials. So we'll get that available to you for the next meeting. On page 26, reference, if you hadn't seen it, the PennDOT Freight Movement Plan was released for public comment. There were some changes that needed to be made to that based on the bipartisan infrastructure law. So they were reflecting those things that were required for the Freight Movement Plan. And as we kick off our next long range plan update, the 2024 or 2045 PennDOT long range plan and the Freight Movement Plan will be good examples and guides for that. So bring that to your attention if you haven't seen it. On the electric vehicles front, PennDOT did finalize its statewide plan and then a separate electric vehicle mobility plan. Those links are included in your online packet that you can click on and refer to those. And there's more discussions that are being held on that. And we have the next PennDOT Planning Partners meeting coming up in 2 weeks, and that's kind of a core agenda item as well to discuss electric vehicle programs and charging station grant programs and such. So we'll continue to report back as we have more information on how those processes will play out. Page 27 of your packet mentioned that traffic signal technologies grant program we shared recently, the new state program. The application deadline was September 30th. I'm aware that at least a couple municipalities have gone in, submitted applications for that to modify some of their existing traffic signals. So if those applications are shared in the future or the awards come out, we'll make sure to get that out to all the members so you can review that. Multimodal application, PennDOT has a round open right now. We've shared those out with you all and municipalities. Feel free to promote that further. But the application deadline for the PennDOT Multimodal Fund program is November 14th. Link is there in your packet. And as the MPO, we'll have an opportunity to review the applications and comment on them. So as those are received, we'll make sure we share that information with the members. And if there's things you're aware of locally that we should weigh in on or reflect on those applications, we'd be more than happy to do so. Next on page 28, I will mention at the bottom there, the highway performance monitoring system. Catherine's been working in her final remaining days to finalize the information we need to submit on those samples. So we'll get that off the PennDOT by the December deadline for reviewing all those samples and updating the information on each of the locations, the segments that we were required to review. And she's also been working with our intern, Matt from Bucknell University on that and various other mapping and GIS initiatives. So we're glad to have him part of the team as well. Page 29, The road safety reviews, Catherine will touch, later on the agenda, so I won't dwell on those, but be pleased to have your participation in that process and help us come up with some solutions for some of those areas that are experiencing higher than expected crashes. The SEDA COG MPO newsletter, we had a good opening of our summer edition. 41% of, I think, around 300 or so folks received that. So we're pleased to see that having an impact, and we post on our website that anybody can access it and promote that on social media as well as part of our information distribution. And the next issue will probably go out in November. So if there's things you think you want to see reflected in there that we aren't, feel free to let us know, but we'll keep our e-newsletter going out on a quarterly basis going forward. And the final thing I wanted to hit is on page 30. The statewide LTAP planning partners meeting was held in late September. We did our normal updating as a planning partner of what we're doing in the region. And then we learned some statewide updates. And one of the really neat things that came out of that was there's a new initiative, a highway safety improvement program, local road force account process. You may recall in the past we discussed that some of these local roads, it was difficult to get the HSIP fundings deployed to them. Contracting purposes and some difficulties there. But PennDOT, and working through the LTAP technical team now, is starting this new initiative. More details to come, but focused on curves and pedestrian crossings. So do low cost treatments. So they'll kind of do the study, the design, and where they have interest municipalities, they'll apply for this funding, and then they can get the funding for their own forces to go out and do the work. Installing the traffic signs, putting in pavement markings and so forth. So they're not going to be big ticket items, but kind of lower cost. But it's a huge win to try and get more of these federal funds into the local network. Do you have a question, Kate?
Yeah, it sounds like a good match for the recommendations of the Hogan Boulevard study. Because the issue was, we presented that study to the township where most of it is located. And the township officials were like, it's a PennDOT road. We can't help with any of this. But then, as we were talking, well, aren't you the ones who, paint the lines and clear the snow? And well, yeah, we do, but, so this kind of thing, like the pedestrian cross repainting and, adding some signage and some more lighting and things like that were recommendations. And this is the kind of program that could help them, because they just see it as PennDOT's road and they don't want to have anything to do. They don't want any burdens associated with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, we'll share more information as this comes together, and then if it's something they're interested in pursuing, it's kind of an innovative way to address this. It kind of got bogged down in the past because of some of these contracting requirements and challenges, put them onto the local network. But the PennDOT LTAP team is great. I know a lot of you have worked with them, Pat Wright and Mark Hood and other folks through that program. So they're going to really be out in the field and helping, hand in hand with municipalities to deliver on this. So we'll keep that in mind.
I had one other question. How many planning partners are there statewide?
There's 24.
24.
Yep. So the MPOs, the RPOs, and then there's an independent county.
Well, Lycoming.
Wayne County is the
Oh, Wayne
independent.
County?
Yeah. But Lycoming is its own MPO. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Any questions about what's in the staff activity report or the normal things we include here, kind of the TIP local project tracking, and then also some of the requests that come in from local officials for particular projects, mostly bridges. And then our TA, Transportation Alternative Set Aside project updates are here in this section. And I think finally, last but not least, the highway occupancy permits that were submitted since our last MPO meeting, and the traffic impact studies for your review, or if you want to learn more information on those, you can get with the applicants or the PennDOT district permit staff on those, but we want to try and just share that as additional information in case you're not seeing it in other venues. So a lot there. Sorry for kind of going through a huge rundown, but there were some significant things and items we wanted to highlight. So any questions on the the work program or the staff report or other activities there.
I'm the only one talking, but I'm looking at the highway permit. Where are they putting a McDonald's in Clinton County?
Let's see, which township, which line is that one?
It's on the last page of it, third one down, or, yeah, the last page of it.
On Route 64, it looks like. I'm not sure which municipality right now.
It would be Lamar Township or Porter Township.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it'd probably be a brand new one then.
I guess.
Sometimes they're modifying the driveways, but I'm not.
Yeah, because there's one already at the highway interchange with 80.
Okay. That might be it. Yeah, we can look into it afterwards and find out the details on that. But yeah, sometimes they're just modifying things slightly, so it's not necessarily a new
Okay,
development or a new
right,
McDonald's in
okay,
that case.
that's probably what it is.
But there are several new gas stations, so you see those on the list. There's a lot of them in the works and humming along with the gas stations all throughout the region. And, the spread of Wawa into the area, you're seeing that. Okay, thank you all. If there's nothing further, we'll slide right into an action item we have for today. This is the Route 522 Corridor Improvement Study. The slides are in your packet, and Brian Funkhauser from the Michael Baker team, been our prime consultant on this. He's going to lead us through that. But just as a reminder, this is the other PennDOT Connects kind of study we had in our last work program, the 2022. And it was looking at safety concerns on Route 522, essentially Market Street and east, the Fields Grove area, west out the Pauling Station. This came out of the county. Certainly has been interested in a long time. Municipalities, our prior long-range plans, identifying the need for further evaluation and study of safety along this corridor. So we were glad to get the Connects funding delivered to it. Glad for Lincoln's leadership and the active management team we had throughout to guide the process. And we had very strong public attendance, which was great. The first meeting, maybe a little bit muted, but the second one, we had a lot of people from the public attend and share their concerns and ideas and recommendations on the corridor. So it's nice to have 40 or so folks from the public attend the meeting on that and share their input. And so without any further ado, I'll turn things over to Brian to present this, and then we'll hopefully entertain a motion to approve the study findings and have us use them in future planning and programming activities as an MPO. So Brian, if you're able to unmute, please.
Okay, Steve, can you hear me? Quick mic check.
You're coming through clear, thanks.
Okay, what can you see on your screen? Do you see the full screen?
Yes.
I see
Okay.
your presentation sitting back here on the virtual side.
Okay, thanks, Frank. All right, we'll go ahead and get started then. Good morning, everyone. We'll just provide some background and highlight the findings and the recommendations that came out of this corridor study. This, as Steve indicated, this actually began late last year. We were actually working with Jim Saylor in getting a scope of work and schedule put together and executed for this. But we formally launched this project last December. And we've met with members of our management team several times over the course of the year in really getting us to where we are today. So as part of this briefing here this morning, I'm just going to cover the purpose of the study, some of the focus areas, things that we learned as a result of the study process. I'm going to cover at a high level some of the existing conditions and the key corridor issues that exist throughout the 522 corridor there in Penn Township and Selinsgrove Borough. And I want to spend most of the time on the study recommendations. That's obviously the most important aspect of this. And we had a handful of recommendations that came out of the study process that I want to review with you as part of this briefing. We did have a management team. As I mentioned, they met several times over the course of the past year. We had folks from PennDOT District 3, John Rank served on the committee, Malcolm Dirk from Susquehanna University. We had folks from Selinsgrove Borough, as well as Penn Township. Bob Garrett was on the committee from the regional chamber, and Steve mentioned Lincoln. Lincoln Kaufman, who was very instrumental in helping us with our public meetings, public engagement, and was a very important voice on the committee. So we did have a management team that provided guidance and direction to the consultants throughout the course of the project. And again, the point of the project, this has been something that's been on the MPO's LRTP as an item for future study and analysis. Some of the work that we've done on CSVT with statewide modeling has indicated that traffic volumes on Route 522 are anticipated to increase by as much as 10% with the completed CSVT. And so this is something that the MPO wanted to get out in front of. We know that there's problems on the corridor today. Those problems are going to be exacerbated with the completion of a CSVT in 2027. So this study really presented an opportunity to identify the issues and provide a menu of improvements, try to get out in front of these issues before CSVT is completed here in a couple of years. This slide just provides an overview of the study corridor, and Steve already mentioned what the limits of the study corridor are here at from the intersection of Bridge Street here in Selinsgrove Borough in front of the Ford dealership, really mark the eastern limit of the study out through Penn Township to Pauling Station out on the western limit. One of the issues that was identified as part of the study process was that of speeding and speed management. This slide just shows the variations in posted speeds along the corridor. 55 miles an hour posted speed out in Penn Township. Then it drops down to 45 on the other side of Salem Road. And then on the other side of 18th Street, as you move into the borough, more densely development pattern, residential, commercial development there, you see the posted speed drops down to 35. But what was interesting was looking at what was the recorded speeds that were being recorded in the corridor, and you see the differential there. Posted speed being 55 out here in Penn Township, actual speeds, the 85th percentile was actually 60 miles an hour. And then in this zone, it dropped to 53. And then in the borough, look at the delta there. Posted speed of 35, but the 85th percentile was 49. So again, speeding was a major issue, a major concern to be addressed through the study process, especially in this area out here through Penn Township, where you have a rapidly developing commercialized area, high speeds with a lot of driveways, access management issues throughout the corridor here. So again, it was a key issue that the study needed to address. In addition to speeding was mid-block turning issues, safety issues with people making turns on and off of 522. And this slide just shows the number of mid-block turning crashes for the latest 5-year period that crash data was available. And you see the number of crashes that were recorded out, especially out in Penn Township in these high-speed locations with multiple driveways, people making turning on and off of the roadway, and recorded a higher number of crash activity out in those areas. Another area that we looked at included intersection improvements. And this is just a view of 522's intersection with Bridge Street, and kind of a plan view, an overhead view here of the intersection, and then a street level view here, looking east toward the Ford dealership. And we saw some opportunities there for some improvements there as it related to signing and pavement markings there, just to try to do a general cleanup of that intersection there. And we'll talk more about that here later on, but I want you to be aware of the pavement markings that exist there. Kind of shows a two-way two-way traffic here on this segment, when actually it's only one way. So anyway, we're just looking at some things there to do some general cleanup of that intersection as part of the recommendations. So that's the three primary issues that we were looking at as part of the study process. Key recommendations, again, are oriented toward how do we address these issues? How do we address issues related to speeding, turning movement issues, and the intersection improvements? And the study is really advancing four primary priorities for implementation. And I'll just touch on each one of these in more detail, beginning with potential signalization of 18th Street. Through our meetings with the management team and the public meetings that were held, we had discussed the potential opportunity for signalization of this intersection of 522 with 18th Street. And from the analysis that was done there, we did see that from a traffic flow perspective, there is merit to signalizing this intersection. From the traffic volumes that we're seeing here, it did justify, the installation of a traffic signal. There's other benefits to signalization of the intersection, including, the way that a signalized intersection here would be able to meter the traffic and lower vehicle speeds, particularly those that are northbound on 522 and headed toward Selinsgrove Borough as they descend that hill toward Broad Street and into Selinsgrove Borough and into a more commercial and residential setting there. Signalization here would really help in that regard. And also with the school district. The school district has challenges with getting students through the Broad Street intersection there at the bottom of the hill in front of the Wise Market. And so a signal here at this particular intersection would really help to redistribute that school area traffic and other related trip making that takes place within this area and provide other options for getting school students to and from Route 522. Some of the cons that the study identified included responsibility of the signal, who would have ownership of the signal. The borough boundary actually runs down 522 here and then down 18th Street. So if you look at the intersection here, this is actually Selinsgrove Borough here in this quadrant, and the rest of the surrounding area is Penn Township. So if the intersection were ever to be signalized, there would have to be some discussions to determine who would ultimately be responsible for maintaining the signal, whether it comes down to a shared maintenance agreement between the borough and the township. The next area we looked at was this one here on Salem Road, the intersection of 522 with Salem Road. It's, again, high speeds running through this intersection. The alignments of Salem Road and University Avenue are not at right angles. They come into 522 at an acute angle. So visibility is not very good at the intersection, and many have described this as probably the most problematic intersection in Snyder County. But we are looking at, the study looked at advancing the concept of a roundabout at this intersection, again, as a way of reducing vehicle speeds through the area, as well as improving safety. So incorporating a roundabout at this intersection would definitely lower vehicle speeds through the area. It would also reduce the severity of crashes. It wouldn't eliminate crashes, but it would certainly reduce the severity of crashes. And so there are many benefits to a roundabout over a traditional four-way intersection in that it reduces the overall number of vehicle-to-vehicle potential conflict points that you would have with a four-way intersection versus a roundabout. The study does propose additional evaluation of the roundabout concept. This study found that the roundabout concept would be feasible for use at this particular intersection, but the next step would be for District 3 really to conduct a more detailed design study just to determine what are the design features that would be needed at the roundabout. So that would determine things like the size of the roundabout, what should the diameter be, the alignment of the approaches that come into the roundabout, what should they look like, what should the lane configurations be within the roundabout, things like lighting, pedestrian facilities. Those are all more detailed items of concern that would be addressed through a more detailed design study for the for a potential roundabout. But again, this study found that a roundabout concept would be feasible at this location. The other primary study recommendation was the construction of a two-way left turn lane out in Penn Township between Clifford Road and Middle Creek Road out in Penn Township. This is an illustration of one down in the Perdix area in Perry County, right before you get into Marysville, just to give you a visual of what a two-way left turn lane would look like. And again, with all of the turning movements that exist here on this portion of the 522 corridor, a two-way left turn lane would remove those left turning vehicles from the through lanes and provide some storage for those vehicles in the center median area until there's a gap in opposing traffic in order to make the turn. And then finally, the intersection there at the intersection of Bridge Street with 522. Again, just to orient you, the Ford dealership would be off to the right here of the screen. And again, we're just looking at some general cleanup of the intersection here. I mentioned the removal of some of the pavement markings here on Bridge Street. The study recommends resurfacing both this share of Bridge Street here as well as Orange Street just to improve the driving conditions there. The study is also recommending stop bars at the stop sign locations on Orange Street just to better highlight where the stopping areas are. So in addition to removing the double yellow lines here on Bridge Street, we're also proposing adding double yellow lines here on Orange Street. Again, just to better highlight the two-way traffic flow along the approach here. Okay, and that's it. That's a summary of the recommendations and the key findings. But again, as Steve mentioned, we had great participation. These were among the first face-to-face public meetings that we had on this side of the pandemic. But we had close to 30 to 40 people at the second public meeting. So there was a tremendous amount of interest from the public as well as the stakeholders alike for improvements along the corridor. And we had met with the management team here in recent weeks to finalize the study report. And so I will stop there and take any questions or comments from the MPO board.
Maybe just kick one off quickly. Any of the members, I'm not sure if you have any positive examples for that shared maintenance agreement if the traffic study does get pursued. I know that can be tricky for the maintenance side of things for municipalities in this area where it's got two municipalities affected with that intersection. Does anybody have any great examples of how that's worked for any shared maintenance agreements for traffic lights across the region?
I think,
On the mind?
I don't know about traffic lights, but highway street lighting, I know there's agreement between Clinton County and the city of Lock Haven for Paul Mack Boulevard. And that's just who pays for the light. But basically maintenance of a street light is who pays, right? Right, so,
Montour County, we've got that, the situation out of Washingtonville, 254 intersection. The cost of that falls back on the township. Maintaining and keeping that light, paying for it.
Yeah, it can be a substantial cost to be out there regularly and keeping things optimized for the traffic signals. So that can be a huge concern. And where it's not just all falling on a single municipality, where you kind of have to have a cooperative or your joint maintenance agreement. It can pose some difficulties. So thank you. And Lincoln, I think you were going to offer a comment or question.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, it was great to work with Michael Baker team and Brian and all of his people. We had a great turnout. There's been a lot of issues through that corridor for a long time. In fact, I started here in 2015. Jim and I started talking about this either late 2015 or early 2016. So it's taken that long just to get the study completed. So I'm just really thankful and happy that it did get done. Thankful with the way that everything turned out. Yeah, there's definitely issues. I mean, I think anytime we get involved, I mean, any of us that get involved with multiple municipalities, nobody wants to pay for it. So that's going to be an issue, but at least now we have recommendations and we can move forward from here. So once again, Brian and your team and everybody at PennDOT too. We had a lot of people from PennDOT that were on that steering committee. Steve was in there as well. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. You guys did a great job.
Great. We appreciate that, Lincoln, and all that you did, with the local initiative and support for these, and that we could get these funded. I know it was very fervent the last meeting, the presentation for Hogan Boulevard, and everybody was very impressed by that, and really looking forward to some implementation, and we'll continue to propel those forward, hopefully, and do the same with this study in Snyder County for Route 522. So if there are further questions, discussion, feel free to bring those out now, and then after we would look for a motion to approve the study findings presented here today, and then we can incorporate those into future planning and programming activities, working with the district, working with the municipalities to try and deliver on these recommendations.
on the traffic circle thing, that'll freak people out initially,
It
but you know
already
what?
has.
I'm sure it has, but you know what? My husband's from Sri Lanka and we've gone a couple times and they use a lot of traffic circles all over the place. And the way they make it really visible is they put a statue, like a lot of times it's Buddha or, whatever they want, some dignitary or whatever, right in the middle, but you could have plantings and flowers and stuff so that people can see when they're coming at it, hey, this is different.
Yeah, and we're already getting 2 other ones on CSVT on Mill Road. There's going to be 2 there. So, I mean, people are freaked out about that too, but the thing, they're coming and PennDOT is recommending them all over the place.
Yeah.
So you better get used to it because they're coming to our area whether you want them there or not. And honestly, I didn't really go through one until I watched football into Maryland. And Maryland uses a lot of those.
Yeah.
So, I mean, first time I went through, I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? And and I'd go up to Army one time. Up there, they have like multiple lanes in there. I'm in the middle lane, like, how the
I know.
that freaked me out. But finally, I got around it. But I mean, these are going to be easy ones. People will get to them,
Yeah.
and they're going to have to anyway because they're coming here whether we like it or not.
Yep.
And it does exactly what it's supposed to do. As Brian said, it slows traffic down. And even if there are crashes, it can't eliminate crashes. But what it does is they're not going to be as severe as they would be if that were. People fly through there. They absolutely fly through there. And I know the 80 Talents through there, that there's times a day when there's not traffic there that people blow through there a lot faster than that.
Yeah.
And it's all on big curves. So sight distance is a big issue there as well. There's a lot of issues this will help with. Now it's just a matter of getting it on the tip here, find some fun and do we have something for you? What are your thoughts? For the biggest thing out of this, I think, in my mind, and Brian, don't be afraid to step in and say something, but it was brought up that the stormwater would still be through the municipality. The stormwater there is basically taken care of by the municipality anyway, so it's not like that's an added cost. But I think that they looked at that like, well, we don't have to pay for that. You do anyway. I mean, the stuff that's there right now, you're paying for anyway.
Yeah, yeah, the issue of lighting came up too as a municipal cost.
That would be a little bit different. I think there is a light there now, one.
And I think John had mentioned, John, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I thought I'd heard someone say that there's never been a fatality in a roundabout, either in District 3 or Pennsylvania, but maybe I'm not sure if that's something you said at the meeting or not, but it's got roundabouts have a good track record.
That might have been brought up by federal. Somebody said it.
Yeah.
Brian, I believe it was Joe Lyons, our district, one of our district traffic engineers.
Okay.
That said that, and I believe it is correct. I believe that's a true statement that basically because it eliminates head-ons, that there has, I guess, been no record in Pennsylvania of any fatalities.
Yeah, that's something to stand on.
And the other thing too about bringing up the lighting, it is cheaper to light these than it is to continuously upgrade and to light a traffic signal intersection.
Good point.
Unfortunately, I think the public was pretty supportive. There were some concerns, maybe like you mentioned for nighttime, for lighting there as people are coming in at, maybe a higher speed as they approach it, and also for tractor trailers, that kind of concern, make sure the radius is appropriate. But by and large, I think, as was referenced, people are getting more comfortable. They drive throughout central PA and all across, Pennsylvania and other states. They're getting more familiarity and comfort with roundabouts, and just the numbers speak for themselves on the safety benefits. So, I was pleased with what I heard from the public at the meeting and their kind of openness to this there. And like Lincoln mentioned with the CSVT project, new roundabouts are being installed. People travel off the Williamsport and go through, a series of 3 of them there. We're seeing more comfort and openness, so we're glad for that. And this recommendation was included.
If there's no other questions by anybody, I'll recommend approval and acceptance by this body.
Great, thank you, Lincoln, for the motion to approve the study findings. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Greg Moore, thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign.
I know we've got a roundabout planned in the 54 safety corridor. And that met with some conflict from the public, but I think they finally agreed that it would do what it's intended to do.
Yeah. They work.
Yeah, progress, as they say, isn't always a direct linear line or like a laser, so it kind of takes some time and incremental, but I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate that, and thank you for passing that. We'll reflect that in the future activities of the MPO. Next, agenda item H begins on page 56 of your packet, and Catherine's going to highlight some of the recent work and what we're looking to do with these road safety reviews. Catherine, thanks.
So starting on page 56, there's a series of pages there with some charts of locations. These are just draft locations that we have, or I have gone through using some data, some crash data, to pull out what intersections or segments are showing high crash rates, high enough that they could potentially qualify to get HSIP funding. So these are in review by the districts right now, and we still are working on pulling together locations for the actual site visits that we're planning. So the final listing will come through. I will say, I think there's also one included, or maybe I deleted it. Let me look. I think I kept it. There was one included based on some conversations that have been happening with Columbia County of a particular intersection that's been having some trouble with accidents and issues there. So once we have the full list of locations, we will certainly be contacting everyone involved. I do the municipalities get invited to that as well?
Yes.
Okay, municipalities, and we'll certainly loop all of you in to those locations and the times if you would like to attend any of them as they're chosen. So on page 62, those are the 2 dates for District 2. It'll be the end of October here, and District 3, the beginning of November. There's the potential possibility we may have to make a second day as well for District 3, just in case there's too many locations that come through, given there's more counties in District 3. So
So
keep those on the
you want
horizon.
somebody to attend this?
If there's any you have any particular interest in, it would probably be helpful to have some input and some local knowledge for that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the ones that are chosen, certainly all the county MPO members be invited. If you can attend, that'd be great, or maybe offer some input ahead of the field views. Same for the affected municipality, and if they have local police forces that might want to participate, that's good to have.
Yeah.
Any of the supervisors or managers that want to be present.
Who applies for this HSIP? That's something we've never done.
They
Is it
can,
the municipality?
they can propose it. The MPO can propose them, counties, very folks, and then it's done through the PennDOT SharePoint system. So
Okay.
kind of we focused here on those that are consistent with the Highway Safety Manual Network Screening Tool. And the big emphasis is on where you have crashes that are exceeding what's predicted for that roadway, intersection or segment. So based on the normal conditions of that area, if you have an excess crash value or cost value, that's kind of what's needed. It's very scrutinized, and there's some rigid criteria for the HSIP funds, but we kind of rely on those lists that have already been identified in advance, and then incorporating local concerns to maybe round out the list. But that's the main emphasis area, is where you have those excess crashes. You can factor in things like the type of roadway, the curvature, the land use around it, traffic volumes as well for that scenario. So we'd look to do maybe up to 2 sites per county. And as Catherine mentioned, we're still getting some input from the district traffic units on this listing, or if there's others they think are best reflective of the funding. And some things might just come up that are outside of HSIP, and they can be done through other kind of maintenance applications or other things. But this is something we would try to do every couple years, just to update our safety projects. And as we conclude the Route 54 project we talked about earlier, there'll be openings for other safety projects in District 3, and hopefully get some eligible projects and get some improvements up there.
Now,
Steve,
you're saying that based on the data for these particular intersections or segments, that's what put them on this list of potentials.
Correct.
Okay, where's that information?
We can share that afterward. PennDOT has some links, what's out there publicly available. And as we would go into these field views, we would then look to get like individual crash resumes and maybe some collision diagrams from PennDOT to bring to those. But we'll share the links to these locations.
The reason I'm saying that is there looks like there might be enough space on this paper for another block of relative information that could go along with this. Because as each of us goes back, we present this and we're saying, okay, they're thinking this is a particular potential area for safety concerns. Yeah, that's great, fine. But if we go back and we say this is potential because right here you're seeing that this is a data for this year, this many crashes, this many fatalities. We've got numbers to present to our commissioners, to our planning commissions. We can say, you need to be here. You need to be interested in going forward with this safety concern. That's what happened at 54. It wasn't until we started showing dead people to these people to get the community involved and saying, look, this is a concern. It's just data, it's just information, but it is relevant. And I think it carries with it weight. So if we could have that, that would be great.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I think what I'm referencing is public available. Sometimes with the crash data, there's confidentiality concerns. So we can get with the districts and confirm that what I'm speaking about can be shared amongst the MPO members and everything. But
yeah, I'm not saying we're going to go to the press and say, this is all this, although it's probably already been recorded because they were there covering the wreck. But it's something that we can use as a data collection to show the importance of this when it's going before the committees and the people that are going to have input.
Yeah.
And yeah, if it's not for general disbursement, that's fine, but it needs to be at least dispersable to municipalities.
Hey, Steve, this is Mark Schultz, and I want to state that those are very good points. That is very good details that there are details that are needed for those discussions. I agree with that. As you mentioned, some of the details are secure, some of the details cannot be displayed, but the ultimate goal here is to improve these areas that are being identified as safety concerns. Katie, I have a question for, not Katie DeSilva, but Catherine. Do you show these as a priority listing, or are they, how are they placed in this order?
They're just on there based on how I worked my way through the counties. They're not in any sort of priority way.
Okay, very good. I'll continue to work with our traffic and our safety unit on this. The other comment for Katie DeSilva is that the department typically will evaluate this with the municipality, with the planning partner, and the application for approval for the use of HSIP or safety funds towards an intersection of interest like this will typically go through the department for approval. And there are two sets of funds. One fund is a regional allocation that's been submitted or available to the planning partner. Another is a set aside that is above and beyond. So it is additional funds that can be sought. And this is a great move. This is a great step towards utilizing and acquiring some of the available safety funds that are out there and available for community. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Mark. And if you've been tracking things, statewide, we were reporting Pennsylvania is not meeting its targeted goals. So certainly there's more scrutiny being placed on deploying the HSIP funds and getting them out there and again, obligated to get projects completed and underway. So hopefully we can start to drive down the crashes and the severity of them.
And then just on the last thing, really quick, on page 63, the last 2 pages there are just some sample questions that would sort of drive the conversations regarding each of these locations that are chosen. And this was from the last iteration of this. Just as a indicator for you, if you're coming out to any of the site visits and you want to know what we're going to be discussing, you can look at some of that ahead of time. I think that's all I have, unless anyone has any other comments or questions on that.
Catherine, I have a question.
Sure.
Do you know what the date range was to gather the crash cluster data?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I want to say it was relatively recent years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Typically it's 5 to 7 years, I believe.
Well, there was definitely a fatality and a couple crashes on the segment on 522 near Kistler Road. I'm surprised that doesn't show up.
Yeah, it's depending on the segment or the intersection, they have, what's expected versus what actually happened.
Oh,
so I don't know
sure.
what the expected is or.
Hopefully they expected fatality 0.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we expect 12 to die there, no problem. We haven't reached that yet.
Yeah, forget if it ended in 2020 or 2021, but yeah, within 5 years worth of data.
Okay.
And they're broken out differently because intersections are unique versus segment or roadway. So there's 2 separate lists for those projects and priority locations.
Thank you.
Some more to come on that, and we'll look forward to your participation and other ideas you may have. And then that feedback form, as Catherine mentioned, page 63, just an example, but that's where you can really reflect the local things that you're aware of, maybe in the development cycle as well, and land use wise that should be considered along with just what the crash data are showing. And next are kind of 2 quick hitters, administrative items on the agenda. We're up to agenda item I, that begins on page 66. So this is just a reminder. We have staggered 4-year terms for the appointments to the MPO, and we have 5 that are coming up for reappointment. Those being Katie, which is kind of timely with the work through Clinton County to get Steve appointed as the new Clinton County voting member. Mark Calusi from Mifflin County would be up the end of this year as well. And then we have Lisa Doley from the town of Bloomsburg and Jack Kittle from Berwick Borough. That'd be the seats that are up for renewal this year. So we'll coordinate after this meeting with your chief clerks and the local side with their administrators to begin that process, share our sample resolution as we typically have to kind of simplify and make it easier for you, and look forward to your continued involvement. It's critical to our process.
Can they appoint somebody when someone retires in the middle of a term?
Yes,
Can
yep.
Steve be appointed now?
It could be now, but just where it falls in sequence, we'll send those out anyway.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it should be just kind of a customary thing for him. But yeah, where there's other transitions or things happen, we sort through that process to make sure that they're designated. And then Frank Hampton's been filling in since Kerry Mullins had taken his temporary assignment at the programs or at the District 8. So we'll continue to work with him being our liaison. We'll see what happens on a more permanent basis there. And Frank's been a great resource and has over time when we've had him weigh in on the process in the past. And at the end of the year, we'll entertain those motions for the seats then as well as we normally do. If there's interest in a new chair, or if you want to keep those as they are, the seats for the MPO, transportation director, and for the program center liaison as the chair and vice chair. So that'll come out at our November 18th meeting for the officers. We're not getting in any mudslaying or anything like you see in all your advertisements now, but if anybody else wants to throw their hat in the ring, feel free to do that. So that's the appointments. We'll send out the follow-ups. Next is agenda item J and page 68. We wanted to get out early with our proposed meetings for 2023. Hopefully you can take a look at your calendars and then come back at November. We'll approve the meeting dates for 2023. But we did the advanced coordination with the County Planning Directors Association and had confirmed that none of these overlap or conflict with their quarterly meeting dates. So that's great news. But if there's other things that are occurring in your areas or statewide, let us know before the November meeting. So we'll follow that sequence there for our 6 meetings in 2023, unless there's any further information to be shared. Rolling right along, agenda item K, we're on page 70, and that's Catherine to give us an update on some of the active transportation committee work.
So on page 70 here, you'll see an updated list of meeting dates. There's not many on there, but hopefully some of those work groups get scheduled here at the end of the year and into early next year. The next full committee meeting will be November 2nd. And then we also wanted to make sure it was shared out with everyone. The Northumberland County Rail Trail Master Plan was approved and publicized. So if you want to take a look at that, the link is there for it. Some interesting conversations there with some of the trails they're planning to do in Northumberland County.
Is the rail trail proposed to go all the way to Sunbury?
I believe so.
Wow, that's cool.
That's pretty long. The other thing we included in here, this was updated, the master listing of pedestrian and bicycle funding opportunities. I highly recommend you pull this up on the computer as well because it is interactive and you can click on more about each of these funding programs. But this was updated as of September 9th. So definitely recommend looking through this and checking it out for some funding for any of your projects you've got going on. If you have any questions or anything on this, or you need any help decoding things, we can certainly assist with that, but wanted to make sure we called your attention to that too. And I believe the link will be probably in the ticker that you send out afterwards too, for them to have the virtual version. So, does anybody have any questions on anything for the active transportation stuff?
Terrific spreadsheet.
Thank our Fed resources. That came from Federal Highway Administration.
Did it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
It looks so great until you start applying for stuff.
Right.
You realize that you're in competition with the whole country
Yeah.
and your little project is like, you just wasted a lot of time putting together the application. But a lot of them, like the state ones, are great.
Thank you, Catherine, for that update. Next,
Steve.
sorry, Lincoln.
Did I miss something, or did we, the proposed in item J, the proposed meeting dates, did we vote to accept those?
At this point, they're just preliminary, and then November is when we'll have those as an action item.
Okay, I missed hearing that.
Nope, sorry, yeah.
I'm getting old.
We just wanted to give you time if there are things
Oh, stop.
that you know come up and, or a conflict for you. If we need to revise something, then we can do that for the last meeting of the year.
All right, I missed that, I'm sorry.
But yeah, hopefully they all hold and we'll keep those consistent as proposed. Member forum, open it up here just a moment. I'll just highlight a couple quick things. Page 76, Clinton County, Katie, STEP Group, others have been involved in a designated stop program study of PennDOT, and then some things have been unveiled. Recently on that, we had the press release in there that STEP has started, similar to Rabbit Transit, a designated stop program with the first service area from Mill Hall to Lock Haven, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. And you'll see in the press release some of the key locations that are being served by that. So we commend them on taking this on, and it comes on the heels of a lot of prior analysis and study and forums that the county's been working on through Katie and the commissioners and others there. So we're glad to see action on that.
Have you had any feedback, Steve, on the addition of the Danville, Lewisburg, Milton addition to the micro stops with Rabbit?
I know they were seeing very heavy usage of the Lewisburg, Milton, and the Sealands Grove Sunbury. I'm not sure, but David Juba is our contact, and we could try him maybe at the January meeting. Makes sense, have him come give an update on where things stand, what the ridership's showing, and maybe some marketing. Does that sound good to you?
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you can also, this is Beth, you can also email David and ask him too.
Thank you, Beth. Yeah, we can get that to you in the interim, and then maybe something more wide scale for the January meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. And see everybody online, so we're glad you could be with us today.
Yeah, thanks. And I do want to, give everybody here a shout out that's helped promote that service. So it is, I think, our most popular microtransit area. And that's only because, getting the word out is half the battle. So we just wanted to say thanks.
Great. Thank you, Beth. I know you're rolling out other areas throughout the Commonwealth, so it's a great benefit, I think, and kind of merges the fixed route and the shared ride into something, a hybrid scenario that is really meeting a lot of needs. So thank you. Page 77, some of you are particularly interested in the State College Area Connector, major project that's been further evaluated and is going through the planning environmental linkages study. Public meetings are coming up October 19th and 20th in Bollesburg. I think they're at the conference center or golf course. So if that's of interest to you, you can get out and attend those and find out more information on the website. And I think that's all I really wanted to highlight from the interest items. So are there other things for the good of the order or questions that any of the members or any of the virtual participants have?
I'll just say, hey, thanks for all the good work that you do on behalf of our counties and all of you. Keep it up, man.
Yeah, you're smiling now, you're walking away.
Yeah.
It's
I
been a
don't have
pleasure.
to anymore.
It has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Katie. Mark.
Since we have the luxury of having Brian on our call today, would you be willing to ask him if he could give us just a couple second update on where the freight plan is?
For the statewide freight plan?
Right.
Sure. Brian, are you able to shed any more light on the freight movement plan or where that stands in the finalization?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. I appreciate the shout out on the freight plan. Steve had mentioned earlier that there were additional requirements that came out of Bill. We had a freight plan ready to go last December, but as you're all aware, Bill came out just a couple weeks prior. So there were additional provisions in Bill that affected the content of the freight plan. So we've been working with PennDOT this year to address these additional areas. So it includes things like environmental stewardship and military-related freight and things of that nature. So we've been working through the summer, working through with the state's freight work group and really closing the gaps on the freight plan. Pennsylvania's current freight plan expires on November 17th. So at risk is the availability of funding from the National Highway Freight Program. And in Pennsylvania's case, that's about $58 million a year that we receive from the feds through that program. So if the freight plan is not approved, we lose access to that funding. But we have been working very closely with Federal Highway. We provided them with a revised draft in the middle of September. So they wanted a 60-day review and comment period. So it's in their hands right now. They're reviewing it, and we are awaiting, their decision. There was supposed to be federal guidance released sometime this summer, but it never happened. So all we had to go on was just our own self-audit of Bill, just to really determine what we thought the feds were looking for. But again, we're not anticipating any surprises between now and November 17th, but hopefully we'll have an adopted freight plan. This will replace PA on track. The previous freight plan was done back in 2016, or the feds approved it in 2017, but this will replace PA on track after the feds approve it here, hopefully sometime next month.
Can you talk about the electric vehicle plan a little bit? Anybody?
I'm not expert on that, but I know it was done in time and approved, and so it guarantees that PennDOT or Pennsylvania is eligible for the electric vehicle initiative program, the new bill program. All the aspects of that can't comment on, but just to say that the initial focus is on those alternative fuel corridors, and once you build that out and have those stations within the proper intervals, then you can look at other sites. So not sure any other consultants or any central office folks want to comment further on the electric vehicles plan or funding for charging stations and other electric vehicle activities.
Nothing on my end, but.
I asked because there's a private operator who's intending, he's notified us of his intention to develop a charging station in a little tiny town in Western Clinton County. And I just wondered, like, are there best practices? Are there guidelines? What do we need to know to ensure that this charging station that he wants to put next to a car wash is gonna, meet standards?
I was about to ask the same thing, if there's some guidelines, because there's several different, I guess, levels of charging station. They cost different amounts of money that you can put out there and what the federal government's willing to put in for them. Some of them take overnight to charge, some of them take several hours. The ones you see at Sheets probably take about 2 hours. And then there's just fast charging stations that aren't super popular, but they can damage vehicles.
Oh,
So they're not, the technology's not quite caught up yet.
right.
The guidelines would be, if they exist, would be super helpful.
Yes.
Yeah, I think PennDOT's resource page has maybe some examples, but I'll double check that. We can share the link afterward. And I don't know if the State Planning Association has anything for municipalities to consider there. But I will point out, I don't know that we've shared it. There's some upcoming forums that PennDOT's sponsoring. There's one in Waynesport in November. There's elsewhere across the state, and it's for businesses, I think local governments and others to come and learn more. So that would be a follow-up for, we'll share that with you. It's sometime in November. I think Kristen, you're going to be hitting that, and I think I have registered as well.
That was one of the issues we had with solar collection facilities. What's the industry standard?
Right.
Is there an industry
Is there
standard?
one? Right.
Is there a state standard for planning, for development, for land use? We hit the ground running in the dark.
Yeah.
And we're still processing it and going through that.
Okay, yep, that'll be the most immediate area, I think, will be in Waynesport on November 10th.
Steve, I'd like to add that that may be a very good topic and a topic at the planning partners meeting later this month.
Yep, yeah, that's on the agenda. I know, I'm not sure the range of what we'll be discussing, but yeah, more guidance, more information, more support. Yeah, as we're seeing more occur here, technology is rapidly changing. Ordinances, as you've all alluded to, need to keep up to snuff with that. So we'll get some of those resources, the PennDOT link, I think maybe was in there, in the staff report section, but for these workshops that are upcoming, to shed more light and guidance for those that are interested in pursuing the grant program. But yes, in the packet, page 26 is where we have the PennDOT NEVI plan, as they call it, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Formula Program, and then the state's mobility plan. Any other good of the order or things that you're working on in your areas or questions anyone would like to bring out today?
Just wanted to call out Jean's comments in the chat box over here. There were some comments about the roundabout discussion, which is very interesting, and then also some federal guidance on bike and pedestrian lighting changes and transit safety. So check those out too.
Oh, this is Jeff from Pennsylvania Silk. I couldn't get on until later. Had a couple questions. So where's the roundabout going? Which county is that in, or what community?
Brian, you want to cover that since you did the presentation?
Yeah, let me find my microphone. Yes, Jeff, that's in Snyder County, in Penn Township. It's the municipality just to the west of Selinsgrove.
Okay. And the other question I had, it's different than a roundabout question. I know some of you that have been involved in the Transportation Alliance, we actually had PennDOT on and some folks from Erie that talked about some concerns of roundabouts. Is there any update, and I didn't see any agenda as far as the Amtrak station upgrades in Lewistown?
I have not seen anything recently. I know more locally they were working on some things with PennDOT's multimodal deputy to further analyze possibilities there for ADA purposes and other kind of comfort and convenience upgrades to the Amtrak station. Is there anything further that's coming out of that?
Okay.
Well, I mean, really where it was sitting last I got an update was, since that's a private ownership, they needed, the people that run the facility haven't necessarily agreed to any of the suggestions. So certainly they need to commit to something. And I guess the question is who's the people to kind of try to force their hand a little bit, because it doesn't really seem like they're motivated to move quickly. But maybe that'd be a question for eventually Jenny's new replacement boss. I think Steve took over for Jenny. I guess what
Andy Batson.
Andy, that's right, Andy. Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anything additional questions or comments?
Yeah, good morning. This is Gene. I just added another link in there as part of National Pedestrian Safety Month. There's some more materials that you can check out if you're interested at the link in the chat box.
Thank you, Gene. Was that Brian?
Yes, Steve, just for everyone's awareness, as it relates to CSVT implementation, the study we completed last year, implementation is moving forward. And just for everyone's awareness, we do have a meeting scheduled with PennDOT District 3 later this month to talk about a number of the traffic operations related recommendations. Many of them pertain to the SEDA COG region. And so we're looking forward to getting together with the district personnel here. It's on October 27th. And we're just going to be discussing, a number of the recommendations that came out of the report, and just looking for ways to work together to keep those items moving forward.
Thank you. Okay, anything further, we appreciate all the insights, all the examples and great resources being shared here today from the group. It really makes it worthwhile to participate in this process. So thank you for bringing all that out. And if there's nothing further, we could look for a motion to adjourn at 11:15 a.m.
So move, Frank Hampton.
Okay, we'll give the first to Mark and Remy. Beat you by just a skosh there. So Mark Lucy, thank you for the motion. Frank, we'll give you the second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
I can't compete with that beard. That's the problem. That thing's ready for the deer woods already.
That or playoff baseball, huh? Great. Well, thanks everyone, and those of you that are in the room that are participating in the follow-up county planning directors meeting, feel free to recharge and take a little break, and then that'll start at 11:30. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you on November